Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sydney Opera House. We are here on the Playhouse Theatre stage where we've been performing A Midsummer Night's Dream as part of Bell Shakespeare's learning program. My name is Janine. I am a member of the Players Ensemble for Bell Shakespeare, and the Players Ensemble have been touring nationally all year in 2 teams going into schools, so some of you may actually have met us before. This is our 3rd and final week of shows performing A Midsummer Night's Dream. And we've been in Sydney now performing for 3 weeks. We've got 1 week to go in Melbourne next week at the National Theatre. And I'm going to get the cast to introduce themselves now, and please name your characters as well.
Hello, my name is ILDIKO, and in the play I play Hermia, Snug, and the Lion.
Hi everyone, my name is Ray. I play Oberon, Theseus, Flute, and Thisbe in the show.
My name's AJ, and I play Egeus, Bottom, and therefore Pyramus.
Good afternoon, Australia. My name's Joe. I play Demetrius, Tom Snout the Tinker, and a wall.
I'm Jenna, and I play Puck.
I'm Griffin, and I play Lysander and Mechanical.
I'm Jane, and I play Helena, and Robin Starveling, who plays Moonshine.
And as I said, I'm Janine, and I play Peter, Quince, and Titania. I didn't need my notes for that, but anyway. We're just going to start off with the Q&A. You can actually submit your questions via Facebook or via Twitter using the hashtag BellQA. So jump on board into the online conversation. We have Tiana and Sunday over here, and they're ready to take your questions and field them to us. So firstly, I'm going to go off a question here that we've already had pre-submitted. It's from Wendy in Ingleburn. What do you like best about performing Shakespeare? And I'm going to throw to ILDIKO first for that one.
Okay. Well, I think what's great about Shakespeare and the reason why it sort of stood the test of time is because not only as a performer, but even as an audience member, the stories are just so rich and dense, and the poetry is just so beautiful that I think what happens for the characters really says a lot for us, even in our contemporary society. And the themes are just so rich as well, and I think it works really well with what, teaches us a lot as well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for your question, Wendy. It's a good question. I had a bit of a think about it, and I think that it's funny. Humans, we think we're pretty smart, but really we have no way of understanding ourselves. Like we don't really know why we're here, why we're doing this for. So if, let's say for instance, aliens came down to our planet and they wanted to know about us, what made us tick, I wouldn't really know what the first thing to say to them about, because I don't know. But I think if we were to hand them the first folio, Shakespeare's complete works, like we'd get pretty close to them understanding the condition that we live in. And they might even say something like, where are the pictures? And you'd be like, no, they're all there, man. Because it's such densely laden with beautiful imagery, some of the most beautiful poetry ever written. So I think, before Shakespeare, there wasn't really anyone writing characters with that much dimension to them and psychology and does that answer your question? You can't answer me.
Great, thank you.
But I hope it
Thanks
does.
so much, Joe. And actually, leading in, we're going to do a question from Joe from Gosford, funnily enough. What's the difference between acting in a theatre and in schools? Who'd like to take this one?
I'll start. It's very different for us. We've been performing in schools for the last 6 months or so, doing our versions of Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth. And when we do those, we do them with the lights on so we can see the audience. And we have a real direct connection with everything that's going on. We can see every look on every student's face, and we know exactly whether or not they're kind of with us or a little bit confused by what we're saying or completely enthralled. And here, it's a little bit more complicated for us to tell because they're in the dark. But on the plus side for us, rather than just having our 4 banners and a few bits and pieces of props and costume, we get this amazing structure, which is our set. We get cool costumes. We get amazing lighting effects, amazing sound design, all to help us and support us in our performance and create a really immersive theatrical experience, a very different but very immersive theatrical experience. And as an actor, I guess to have, that's what we're used to. I guess as actors, we do more of that probably than we do performing with audiences in schools with not much stuff. But yeah.
Something great about our director's concept was that in the beginning of this show, of A Midsummer Night's Dream, the lights are on, the house lights are up, and we're having a chat to the students as they're coming in, which is what we do in our school shows. So, and that's a big part of what we do, to kind of have a chat to everyone coming in and see where they're at with their kind of learning and their understanding of Shakespeare, and just kind of, build up a bit of a rapport. So it's wonderful that we get to do that with this show as well, because I think it really helps to invite the audience in, especially if they're unused to seeing Shakespeare performed.
Yeah, I agree. I think the purpose of the players is to bridge the gap between, theatre and the audience, really, with students. So I think that was great. Next question over to Tiana.
It's actually a statement. You've had a hello from Deb and Chev in Newman. So.
Oh, Newman. We were in Newman earlier this year in WA, and it was a really fantastic experience. It's a very remote place, and the shows that we did there were just extraordinary, and so thank you so much for that. We had a wonderful time there. Another question over there?
Yes, we've had a question come in from Natalie, who's in Wollongong. She wants to know, how long did you rehearse for, and what's a typical day like in the rehearsal room?
Yeah, so we rehearsed for, what was it, 4 weeks, or was it 5 weeks? I can't remember. It was all a blur of creativity and fun. But so we rehearsed for 4 weeks, and we'd come in at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd do an hour and a half of physical training. Because this show is so physical, as you can see, we've got the structure behind us with people climbing all over it. We've got transitions with people moving tables and slow motion walking. So we did a lot of movement work with our trainer Nigel Poulton, and then after that we'd work on the play for about an hour, get a lunch, and then come back. And it's interesting. The most productive part of our day was after lunch, and a lot of rehearsals after lunch, people are a bit sleepy, whatever. It's kind of the least productive part of the day. But for us, it was the big part of the day of putting together this play. And it was a great experience. Anyone else want to add to the?
We also. We did a lot of sit-down translations of the text, putting the text into our own words. None of us are superheroes with Shakespeare. We still find it hard to understand sometimes. So you've got to spend the time to analyse the text and really know what you're saying, because otherwise it's not going to translate to the audience, and then get it up on the floor.
Great. Excellent. Do we have another question over there, ladies?
Darren from Melbourne, and you guys started to talk about this a little bit, but Darren wants to know, the play's quite physical, so what kind of training did you all have to do to prepare?
Great. Who would like to field that one?
Sure, I'll take it. Our movement director, Nigel Poulton, an internationally renowned choreographer of movement and fighting, he came into the process. We actually thought we weren't going to have him, but fortunately he did come into the process with us on this journey. And the movement system that he came up, he taught us was called Meyerhold. And Meyerhold has things called etudes, where in each movement the person or the people who are going through the movement have to focus on specific things. There are words for them, like tormos, which is, if for want of a better word, control. And something else like Teuchka and what was the other word, guys? Stoika. Persil. So there are a heap of things, but it's essentially a system that you can take and then move it into theatre. And we as a group worked on that as an ensemble. And from this system, we then took it to our acting, where we would find a persil, which is our target. We'd work with our tormos, the control in our body and our words, and go to achieve our target or our objective. So that movement, which then bled into the acting, was a phenomenal help in terms of putting this vision together of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Thanks, Ray. And also, don't forget the hours of sprinting, push-ups and sit-ups that we also had to do in order to do that. I'm just going to throw over to Sunday for the next question.
Okay, so we've had a question come through from Israel Little on Twitter, who wants to know, if you were to meet William Shakespeare, what would you say to him?
Legend. That's an incredible question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is he?
Thank you for giving me a job.
Wow. That really puts us on the spot, doesn't it?
But what do you say? What do you need to say to him? Like, I don't know. Like, what can you? He's probably like, for me, he's probably the greatest English person to live. He's like pretty much a genius. I wouldn't know the first thing to say to the guy.
You should say to him, we would give your book to aliens if they came down to Earth to understand humanity.
Come on. I think he's said enough to us. I don't know what's the point. I wouldn't know what to say.
I would like to ask him whether or not he had any idea that people would still be doing his plays 400 years later.
Totally.
That would be my question. And he probably would have no idea that would be happening. And how does that make him feel? And would he like the money for all of them, maybe?
I'm just going to throw over to Tiana for the next question.
We've had a question on Facebook from Richard Jones, who is in Colwyn Bay in Wales, in the United Kingdom.
Whoa.
He asks, many of you are playing several characters in the play. Does this make it more of a challenge when learning the script? He also says, good luck with the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, actually. There are several of us multi-rolling in this show, and it's one of the challenges and tasks of the actors in the Players Ensemble. In every show we do, we have to play multiple characters. So I think that there's something in the muscularity of learning different characters that we have ingrained in us a little bit by now. When we first come to it, though, at the beginning of the year, it was very heady, trying to find new gestures, new nuances for each character. And I think in this show, just the structure of it, it's a play within a play within a play in this show. We start off with the Mechanicals, who are the theatre company, and they're already pretending to put on a play. And then so we go into a heightened world. And as soon as you have characters that exist in a heightened world, you can throw yourself more rigorously into that, I think. Does anybody else have
Yeah, I'd like to add to that and add to what you guys answered about why it's so good to do Shakespeare. And for me, part of the reason it's so good is that he does the work for you. So when it comes to doing different characters, the way that it's written is such that it isn't that much of a leap to take on a new character or anything like that, because it's all in the language, the intonations, the words that they use, how much they talk about themselves. Some characters speak in prose, others speak in poetry. I mean, AJ, who's playing Bottom and Egeus, there's a really distinct difference in the way those two people talk. So in a way, the work is done for you, and that's a real pleasure. I mean, then of course you've got to learn the lines, which is a obstacle in itself. But yeah.
I'm just going to throw over here for another question.
Yeah. Speaking of learning the lines, Anne Larkin has written on Facebook, "Hi, Belle Shakespeare. Was the Shakespearean language hard to master?"
I like answering this question.
Good. Go for it.
We often do, our other shows we do in schools have a lot of contemporary language in them as well. And one of the questions we get asked is whether it's harder to learn the Shakespeare or the contemporary stuff. Well, mostly kids just assume it's harder to learn the Shakespeare. And I kind of disagree. I think the very fact that most of the language that we use within the Shakespearean text is unique and that we wouldn't use it in our everyday speech makes it easier to remember. I like to think of it like if I have cornflakes for breakfast every morning and then one day of the week I have waffles, I'm going to remember the taste of the waffles way more than I'm going to remember the taste of the cornflakes. Because I like that, because I'm into the waffles are richer and there's more to them, like there's something more exciting about that. And those words just stick, they stick in your head. It's not like everyday speech, which can be easily replaced and use the wrong word all the time. Whereas with our stuff in the Shakespeare shows, in Shakespeare, you can't use the wrong word. It just sounds wrong. You remember it very quickly.
Yeah, it requires a lot of rigour with the text, which is excellent for an actor, and probably for ongoing training, the best thing an actor can do is work on a classical text, because it actually demands such, vocal technique and presence with the language. Thanks for that question. We'll grab another one.
I've actually got 2 from Steph Stojanovic on Twitter. She wants to know, have you ever fumbled over your lines on stage, and who is your favourite Shakespeare character to play?
Double header. Has anybody ever fumbled over their lines? Surely. Surely.
Yesterday, 3 times.
Yeah. Every day, every performance, I fumble over my lines. Because it goes back to that question about mastering Shakespeare. It's kind of like he's mastering you from the grave. Every day I find it so hard to kind of get my tongue around the words every day. And how do we deal with it? We just go on. We just forget about it, because you can't sort of dwell on it. If you dwell on it, then the show's over. And
I
you
think
look pretty
also
silly.
with an ensemble like this, we've got each other's back. Mistakes in such clear text become pretty apparent. So we do actually have each other's back with that a lot.
And an important thing to remember or to try and achieve is what we call thinking on the line. If you do too much thinking between your lines, you're going to be so lost. And I find that's when I fumble with my lines, when I suddenly forget where I am in my speech. So it's important to keep it buoyed, keep going with what you're saying. Try not to drop the ball. Keep it moving. Because when you stop to really think about things, that's when it kind of sometimes can get away from you.
That is so true. Could I just open it up to the Shakespeare character part of that question? Obviously, AJ, you're ready to go.
In the spirit of Bottom, all of them. All of them. I really enjoy playing Mercutio when we do Romeo and Juliet, and Bottom's just too much fun. I can't really go past Bottom, because he just wants to play everybody. Yeah. So why not?
He's
be
the
him?
ultimate diva, really.
Yeah, he's the ultimate actor. Yeah. Every actor has some bottom in them. Every actor has a bottom, and every bottom has an actor.
Yeah, right.
I guess I would say currently my favourite character then is Thisbe.
Oh God, yes.
Who often gets to play a woman in public and everyone claps for them at the end. Not everyone, so it's great.
Anybody else have a favourite character they'd like to throw out there?
A favourite? How do you narrow it down? I haven't played that many to know. It's like a box. You want to open it first to kind of play with the toy. If you read, obviously I'd love to play Hamlet.
Yeah, great.
This guy's a genius, but I don't know yet. Romeo's pretty cool because he can do really silly things and people still like him. The girls still like him for some reason.
Yeah, he's very much loved.
Yeah,
he's a romantic hero.
Yeah.
Tiana, do you have something over there?
Yes, this might be one for Ray and Janine. Catherine Allen on Facebook asks, could you please summarise Oberon's instructions from Act 2 with Titania in modern prose?
Oh. Whoa. His instructions to Titania.
Sorry, I'm lost. His instructions to Titania.
Is that for when he's putting the spell on her, perhaps?
Is that the one?
Well, or is it? Give me the boy.
Is it the fight?
Fight.
The first. Yeah.
In the first.
Oh, yes, of course, in the first scene. Right. So he's asking her to basically, she's acquired a changeling boy, which a changeling is what a fairy child is known as if it's either stolen from someone to become a fairy or the replacement child that's put in the place of the child that's been stolen from the human world. So she's actually got a changeling boy that was bequeathed to her by a woman who died. And Oberon is desperate to have this child as part of his fairy train. But because Titania feels such a responsibility to this child, she refuses to give him up. And Oberon doesn't take that too well.
No, so he hacks up a plan to take the child away from Titania and
that's when he places the spell on her.
Yeah,
really.
and then it goes into a spell, and she falls under the spell the same way that Lysander does, and eventually gets the boy.
Yes, he wins the fight in the end this time. Though I feel like there's a, Titania Part 2 where that doesn't happen. Sunday.
We've got a question from the Australian Theatre for Young People on Twitter. They've tweeted us. And they ask, do you guys all get along on tour? And how do you resolve creative tension on the road without the director?
That is an excellent question. Who would like to field that question? Anybody have an answer for that off the top of their heads?
Well, I think that firstly, in the casting process, all the directors who are on board with us during the year have the very difficult task of finding sort of the best actors to suit these roles, as well as actors who can definitely work together and have, I guess, that level of maturity and professionalism to be able to go out on the road. Thankfully, we're a lovely bunch of people. I'd like to think we are. And so for us, I think it's really about being very open and not taking things personally when there's a creative issue. And I think that's why the rehearsal process is so important when we do have the director, or when the director does come in, that we have the discipline to go, this is what we've created together in the rehearsal room, and so this is what we're taking out to the schools. And I think, in a show, there's always opportunities for that to grow and evolve. But I think if we all work together and go, what is the story? And if we're all servicing the story and working together as actors, then I think we all have a great year.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I love? Sorry, just quickly. You know what I love about mostly about what we do day in, day out, is because we do rehearse. Obviously, we have rehearsals, and we try to find everything we can in the language, but you kind of can't. I mean, unless you're some sort of freak, because you're going to find it on the road, like Ildi kind of said, and I love seeing that happen in an actor that I'm on stage with. That's really cool when they've found something, and it's beautiful because it's so dense, the language is so dense. That's my favourite part. So there's no tension. The tension's released when that happens. There's no tension. It's a creative blossoming, if you will.
Yeah. That's right. Excellent. Tiana.
We have some questions about the physical aspects of the show. The first is for AJ. What is your bottom mask made out of, and how does your acting change when you wear it?
I was hoping I'd be asked a question about my mask, so I've got it right here. This mask was... sure, hold on to that. It's great. This mask was designed by Meg Ashforth. She's a very talented props maker, and it's made of leather, which is why it's got such a beautiful sheen, such a sleek, smooth head. It was a really amazing process having it crafted to my face. I had to get a cast made of my whole face, which meant I just basically had my nostrils free, and the rest of my face was covered in like dental modelling plaster, and then that was for like 20 minutes. So that was pretty interesting. In terms of how I work with the mask, masks are really interesting and exciting things for actors to work with. They give us a lot of opportunities and some challenges, which are basically just opportunities in disguise.
Nice.
The two, I guess, one of the main challenges you have is that you should never kind of turn away from the audience with the mask. We should not really see the back of it. And another thing is that this particular mask works best when it moves in sudden movements and not just my naturalistic head movements that I might do as bottom. So I'll give you an example of when I'm just moving like me. I'll put it on for you. So if I'm just kind of talking like me and not really putting any effort into controlling the mask in any way, that it doesn't have as much life, and it's all about giving life to the mask. And if I focus on just using my eyes, got this gift of these great eye holes, and then start moving in sharper movements to see what's going on, it gives the mask itself a lot more life, and it becomes a lot more interesting to look at. It creates the character of bottom, even though bottom, when I am just with my own face, doesn't move like that. It still gives us the idea that bottom has been turned into a donkey and doesn't know why. So it doesn't even know that it's happened. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that answers the question, I hope.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, AJ. Any other questions about that? Yep.
Yeah, we've got another question here that is also in relation to the movement of the show. In the show, Hermia and Helena have a pretty crazy fight. Are you really hurting each other?
Not intentionally.
The short answer is no.
No, we are not.
That's the aim.
A little bit unsustainable over a 4-week show. So we workshopped this fight very early on in rehearsals with Nigel Poulton, and shall we give a bit of a demo?
Yeah, give us a demo.
We'll give a demo.
I'm going to start with a disclaimer. Don't try this at home.
So
Thanks,
we'll
Ildiko.
start with the fight, and then we'll explain what we're doing. He followed you. For love, I followed him.
Excellent.
Very good.
Do you want to break that down in any way for them, or go what
Okay.
goes into that?
Well, thank you. To start with, there is if you want to talk about kind of, Hermia has to come at Helena with great intention and force and speed to sell it to the audience, because we don't want everyone thinking that we're doing
That you're wusses.
that we're wusses,
No.
because we're not. So if we start, basically Hermia comes at Helena with a really big swoop, and ILDIKO has to watch my eyes and where my face is going, so she can see where I am and when I back away. And we have to be very in sync to do this.
And I think what's important to start off with is to have what's called safe distance. So when we're learning this fight, we're not going, there's no chance that we're going to hurt each other. As we develop that, and it involves a lot of trust from the actors, and that both people are doing what they need to do in the choreography, then you can sort of work up to speed and sort of use your intentions and your physicality to sell that as a partnership.
Yeah. And we have a constant dialogue about our fights. We usually talk about it every day or every second day, just to make sure that we're not hurting each other and we think it's going well and we're selling it to the audience. And so the next part is that Hermia grabs Helena's hair. So I just go back, and then she comes at me, and I grab my hair after she's grabbed it. I grab my hair after she's grabbed it. And the thing to remember in this part is that obviously if ILDIKO was to pull my hair, it would be painful. But we kind of use a bit of kind of counterbalancing in this point. So I push down, I pull her into my head, and she pulls away so that I can control the force with which she's holding my hair. And then in terms of getting over the table, I back myself onto the table, and ILDIKO assists me by pushing me round. And
just lastly, as Ray had mentioned before, the technique of tormos, which is control, means that because I actually do hit Jane in this, I actually do slap her, we kind of find the areas of the body, like on the upper arm here, that's going to be more sustainable for me to hit rather than, whacking her on the spine or in the face. And I've got that control to come down, and then I've got what's soft hands, so I'm not actually really hurting her too much, hopefully.
And it's about selling it, really. Like, that fight they sell it every time, and I think that ultimately, no matter what the impact, that is what gets it over the line every time. That was awesome. Okay, any other questions about that?
Yeah, just a question about the set and how you guys use it.
Yep.
First of all, what's it made of, and how do you do the tricks jumping up and through it?
Okay, Ray, because you jump up and through it, would you like to explain?
Sure. So this structure was designed by NEGROPONTE, who's our designer for the show. It's actually made of steel and wood. It has had an engineer look at it and make sure that it's solid, a solid structure which doesn't move, so that when we jump through it, we can feel as safe as we as we can. Throughout the whole structure, there are certain points on the structure where there are footholds and handholds, like when you're abseiling, so that we can jump on it and our feet don't slip and stuff like that. And in terms of jumping through the hole or moving through any of these gaps that you see in the structure. It's all about control. The same thing, Nigel Poulton. It's using your intent and control so that you go through, but without hurting yourself. So I can give you a demonstration if you want now.
Yes, we would like the demonstration.
At one point, I jumped through it, and
You're going to do the big one.
yeah, jumped through it.
Oh, this is awesome.
I used my legs just to get through the hole.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Nailed it.
Thank you, Ray, for putting yourself at physical risk. Sunday.
Okay, so we've got a question from Dana Brioli on Twitter who says, what is your character's favourite line? Also, Belle Shakespeare performed R&J at my school this year and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you so much for that feedback. Who would like to talk about their favourite line?
I have a favourite line, which I only discovered on our first performance. Helena comes out and she says, "I am as ugly as a bear," and everyone's been in that moment. And I don't think I really quite understood the beauty and the perfection of that line before that first performance, because a little boy in the front row cackled, because it's just so funny but so true, and
That's awesome.
mine.
You got one? I got one. Bottom, it's oddly enough, it's not the funniest line Bottom has, but it's when just after Titania has announced that she's fallen in love with him as an ass, and he says, "To say truth, reason and love keep little company together nowadays. The more's the pity that some honest neighbours will not make them friends." And it's just a beautiful line from Shakespeare, I think, because while there's these lovers running around with no idea what's going on, this full of passion, or maybe they've had some spell cast on them, there's no reason to it, but they all talk about reason. Bottom, despite being kind of the clown, comes out with the most pithy statement about what's going on for everybody else, even though he has no idea it's happening.
Yes, I feel like that was the author's subtext in that line, pretty much. Do you have one, Griffin?
Yeah, my favourite line is when Lysander calls Hermia an acorn. And it's kind of, it's like the climax of his insult, and it's an acorn. And it's like, it's not really much of an insult. Acorns are quite nice, pretty things. And it's sort of like the bear one as well. It's like, bears are remarkably beautiful creatures. And it's kind of, it goes to the heart of this comedy because it's about things not being what they seem, you know? Like, it can be an insult to call somebody a bear or an acorn, but the truth of the matter is that it can be equally something beautiful. And it's like the lovers falling in love with each other, you know? There's real love, apparently, between Lysander and Hermia, and then there's the fake love that Demetrius and Helena end up with the spell cast on them. Well, it's a spell, but it's sort of that thing. It's like Shakespeare's trying to say that, like, both of these things, which seem exactly the same, are quite different, just like the acorn and the bear. Yeah.
Jenna, did you? Oh, sorry, Joe.
No, you're right. No, I agree. That's an amazing point.
Yeah.
You can draw the same parallel between the actual play and the play within a play. The fickle nature of the real lovers, the foursome, and the acting lovers at the end. If they
Pyramus
break
and Thisbe.
Pyramus and Thisbe, beg your pardon. If they and we have been getting some real beautiful emotion there when when Thisbe finds Pyramus, it breaks my heart every time.
It's very sad.
When his lovers make moan, it's beautiful. But it reminds you that the fickle nature of the lovers in the beginning.
Yeah, that's
not
so
what
true.
they seem.
Jenna, did you have a line of Puck's that you...
I really enjoy all the names that Puck has for Oberon. And in our version of this play, I think we kind of used it as Puck's way to take the mickey out of Oberon. Like, Oberon said to him before, "Don't call me a pet name. I hate pet names." And so Puck comes up with the King of Shadows, captain of our fairy band.
He's got no respect for him at all, really, does he?
None.
We've come to realise, though, that the real King of Shadows in our play is Peter Evans, our director.
Yeah, that's so true, so true. On that note, that's brilliant. Lead into Tiana's got another question over here.
We have a question from Lindsay Kremler on Facebook. She wants to know how closely you worked with the dramaturg and dramaturgy of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
That's an excellent question, thank you. We actually had an assistant director in the room, James Evans, no relation to Peter Evans, both equally brilliant. But James is incredible Shakespeare brain. He has got such an incredible understanding of that world. The edit of this play that we're performing was rehearsed and developed by last year's Players Ensemble, and they did an excellent job at making it quite succinct into 90 minutes, still keeping the essence of the show. They did that initially by switching around the first two scenes. So in the full-length play, we meet the royal family first, and in our version, we meet the players, the mechanicals first, and this kind of submerges students watching it into the world of theatre. Also, the mechanicals speak in prose rather than poetry rather than verse. So it just means that your ear can attune a little more. There was a lot of thought put into the dramaturgy, and we were in the room with James for the entire period of our rehearsals. So that was great. Thank you. Sunday.
We've got a question on Facebook from Tully Forward who says, Shakespeare does have a, inverted commas, language barrier, in that the language is sometimes hard to understand for our modern ears. Do you think that Shakespeare's plays would be equally as interesting if presented in modern English, or do you think that the old language is where the interest lies?
Oh, who was reading about this the other day? There was someone, John Bell actually told me about this the other day, after he saw the show for the second time, which was nice of him. He was talking about how they've done tests on people's brainwave patterns, and the language, they basically gave people two passages, one passage of Shakespearean text directly from a play, and one passage of that same text translated into contemporary language, so it was very clearly understandable without any complex grammar. And the difference was out of this world, like in terms of the activity going on in the brain, I guess because you're trying to process something, but also surely that language and using those certain words in that certain way creates images that what we use in everyday speech isn't really capable of doing. Like, I think that's the beauty of poetry. That's the whole reason we have poetry, is so that it creates an image for us that we might not get immediately, but the process of finding it out in our heads and translating it in our heads as we go makes it meaningful and makes it much more vivid.
I agree, and I think that the language of theatre needs to be heightened because we're asking the audience to believe extraordinary things. And daily, day-to-day contemporary dialogue simply doesn't stand up to the task of making people believe that, you know, fairies can exist in a world like this. Even in Lord of the Rings or something like that, the language is still heightened. It's still a little bit more toward the edge than, you know, some contemporary novel or play that you see, which, you know, are great at explaining interrelationships and things like that. But the world of the history plays and the tragedies, they're so vast that they need a vast language to match them. Yeah.
Can I just add something? It's interesting thinking about it having a language barrier, because I suppose tuning your ear to Shakespeare is a long process. And I chat to a lot of the kids coming in every day, and a lot of them are in Year 7, because Year 7 tends to be the year that you study A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I ask them how much they understand and whether they enjoy it. And it is a long process, but the more you read and the more you see and the more you understand, it's something that starts to happen very naturally. So it's just lots of people, even my dad, you know, he probably doesn't, he's said that he's kind of scared of Shakespeare or doesn't really like it, but the more you immerse yourself in it, it becomes like a second language, and it's achievable for everyone. It is totally attainable if you're interested in it.
Totally.
I've got a question to put to everyone here. Is it true? Is it not true that in Shakespeare's day, that the people watching were illiterate by today's standards? Is that? Do you think there's truth to that?
Possibly.
Yeah.
By today's standards, by how we measure
standards.
our literacy. Yeah.
So they couldn't read
but potentially
and
their
write.
ear, or orally, their ears.
Right.
Yeah.
We're probably more attuned to listening to language like that.
Sure.
I think it's something you catch, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Something you catch.
The images.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's an excellent thing, and maybe Google that if you're at home, because we'd like to know too. Sunday has a question for us over there.
Tiana's going to take it. Yeah.
Yes, so Catherine Allen wants your opinion. Why do you think Shakespeare called a character bottom?
Because it's funny.
There's several references to this in the notes in various texts of the play that all suggest it was not necessarily common to refer to the rear of someone's body as a bottom, but that it was possibly a term that people were familiar with. And more importantly, it goes with him being a weaver. Apparently, the device on which you place your weaving to be done is called a bottom. So he was Nick Bottom the weaver, and that kind of is why that works as well. But it's too obvious. Obviously, it has to be a thing about a bum. A bottom and an ass. And an ass.
And an ass.
And the ass.
Yeah, the bottom
as
of
well.
the ass.
So it kind of works too well. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And Starveling as well has an interesting... Do you want me to elaborate?
Please. I have got one.
Yeah.
Well,
Starveling.
Starveling was Robin Starveling is a tailor, and apparently tailors didn't make a lot of money. So she's pretty hungry.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Jane. I'm going to have to throw over to Sunday now for the next question.
Okay, so this will need to be our last question because we're running out of time. But the question is, what's it like performing at Sydney Opera House?
This is the best office in the world.
Yes. I think you say that every day. Yeah. What's it like performing in the Sydney Opera House?
Well, in a way, I mean, it's... I guess I know for me it's like a dream come true to be able to perform on a stage in such an iconic building. But ultimately, you know, at the end of the day, being able to perform such excellent work to such amazing audiences with such lovely actors is a dream come true in itself.
Yeah.
Well, I do feel pretty special every day, clicking my little pass and walking into stage door, just thinking,
But
Made it.
But no less great than as if we went to someone's school to do it, for instance. You know, it's just as special.
Made it.
Truly.
Especially if your school has enormous lighting effects on the big stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, I mean,
That's cool.
it's actually pretty extraordinary to come here every day and actually, you know, tell a story in such an environment. And it's sort of the ensemble as well that makes that really special to have that experience with everyone here. It has become a pretty beautiful experience. The harbour's just extraordinary place to look out every day. Tiana said there's one more question.
Oh, okay.
Yes, one more to finish up. Debbie White would like to know how many people have asked for your autographs.
None.
You can be the first, Debbie.
Oh, yes, they have. Yes, they have.
Had some in a school.
Yes, we
We
did.
had a couple in a school.
Oh, yeah, we did
We
too.
signed
We have
their
them in schools.
diaries. Or maybe they didn't ask for yours.
Oh, and their bookmarks.
We've
Any of you guys?
Probably performed for about 20,000, maybe more students so far this year. I've signed about 10 autographs. So
I like those odds.
it's a pretty low percentage, but we're willing.
Yeah. Ask us some.
I'm pretty popular.
Ray has a fan club
Yours made it on
outside every day.
eBay at some stage, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because when it all
What is it
Yeah,
up
that
to
was
now?
him. He bid it himself.
when it all comes down to it, like even though we get to perform here in the Opera House, it's all about the audience. And if we get to sign an autograph, that means you probably liked us, and that's all we care about. We don't really care where we're doing it apart from that.
So we're going to have to wrap it up now. This has been really fun. Thank you to the cast. It's been really great having the questions from the audience. So thank you all for those of you who sent questions in. We love answering them. It's amazing how much we have to say when you get us started. As we said, this is actually our last week of shows in Sydney, and we go to Melbourne next week. We've got a week in Melbourne, and there's still time to book tickets if you would like to. So that's at the National Theatre. We're then going back out into our Actors at Work touring. One of our teams is going to Victoria, staying in regional Victoria, and the other team gets to go to Tasmania, which is very exciting. We're going to come back to Sydney after that and rehearse our Actors at Work primary school shows, which we'll take on the road in Term 4. We're very excited about that. This Q&A was actually only made possible by the Australian Government Department of Education, Employment and Workplace Relations. We'd also love to acknowledge the generous support of our national schools partner, Foxtel, and all other supporters that enable us to work with the students, performing and workshops around Australia. That's it from us now. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. It was really fun.